Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. We are in our third and final installment in what I think of as Disaster Recovery Month. Melissa, thank you for putting up with me for yet another Monday morning.
Thank you for inviting me on yet another beautiful Monday morning, Jason. I always have a good time when we're talking DR.
And we do talk about DR a lot,
Just a
actually.
little bit.
In fact, if for all everything that we're covering this week is actually little bitty snippets that we've been doing from what we did a Trailblazer talk on, July-ish. So we've got a little teaser for that. If you'd like to see the entire talk, including lots of stuff we did not get a chance to cover during the Monday series, you can register for that at VEE.am/BCDR21 talk. This week, Melissa, we're going to talk about continuous iteration and innovation, and I am so jazzed to do that. But before we do, so you are in New Jersey?
Yes, sir.
I hail from the great state of Texas. It looks like my neighbors to the south, Mexico, have already chimed in.
All right.
Love that with the beginning of the hour. Buenos dias. Let's see, our producer is in Georgia. We got some Florida in the house as well, so very nice over there. France has already chimed in. Of course, our social medias run out of Bucharest, so always nice to see that. Where else have we got some people? Our goal is to always turn the world green each and every week, and it looks like we've got some work to do this week, Melissa.
We do, so make sure you let us know where you're from in the comments so we can light up that map.
Yeah, and actually use the comments also for let's talk about BCDR. So in week one, we talked about aligning the needs of the business with their dependent IT functions. Last week, we talked about documentation and centralizing process and orchestration, right? Getting rid of those manual scripts that we all
get rid of those people. Get rid of the humans.
Not the people, just
the humans.
Okay. No. I guess I can tell how your weekend went. All right. And this week, we're going to talk about continuous iteration.
Absolutely.
Okay, so to start that off with, we do actually have a data chart. I borrowed this from an analyst firm. The percentage of DR tests that actually succeed.
And can I tell you what is wrong with this before we even decrypt this data, which is going to tell us something seriously wrong with testing?
All right.
All right, so if we look at the question, right, tests that succeed or pass. I've seen a lot of folks out there designing DR tests so that they pass, right? Because they want to stay in compliance and please the auditors. So they're architecting a test that's not a real world recovery, but it'll get them those green check marks. The problem with that, it means when recovery time comes, you've never accurately tested your DR plan, and the chances of it actually working are very, very slim. So we're seeing data saying that people aren't even passing their DR tests now. And a lot of these tests are theoretically designed to pass too. So that shows us what a problem DR testing is.
Yeah, we've actually got a neat little graphic that actually shows that. Let's bring that up and then encourage folks to actually take a screenshot of the next one, and we'll come back to this in just a minute. So here's a motto that I have lived off of for years. If you look for green check marks,
I love
you'll find them when you want them, not when you need them.
This is true. If you look for red X's, you'll be able to fix what you need to so you can recover when you want to.
So let's unpack that for a second, because Melissa, I know this is close to your heart. It's close to mine as well. I mean, and we're going to say this a third different way. You said it. I've said it. We're going to do it again. If you're trying to pass, you've actually failed.
Yes, exactly.
Right? I mean, because the whole idea, the goal of DR testing is not to pass. The goal is to figure out.
The goal is to prove that you can recover, right? And to check your RTO. That's the goal of a DR test, to see if you can meet your RTO. It's not passing. It's not getting the green check marks with auditors. You need to see if you can meet that recovery time objective, so you know if you need to make changes, right? So either you can or you cannot recover the servers, which means you need to change things. And if you can't meet that recovery time objective, you then need to go back to the business and say, hey, we can't meet it. Are you sure this is the right number? And if they come back and say, yes, our business says you must meet that number, you need to change something. Probably many things, actually, but that's another discussion.
Now, we got a lot of senior leadership IT folks that typically will join this call as well. And so I guess the one thing that I would really kind of implore for you in particular is please tell your IT pros it's okay
to fail.
It's okay to fail, right? So because I think the problem is that for the 3 decades or so that I've been doing this, when the IT pros are seeking to pass, what they're seeking is either to make their boss's boss, or some auditor happy, right? And when the recovery actually doesn't work later, they're the only people that would have been happy, right? So instead, give them permission to fail, right? Your mission in life is to empower them to say, go find where we need to improve. Don't just give me a document that says we're good, because I promise when you need it, you won't be good. So, all right. So with that in mind, let's go back to the data. Let's go back to that first slide and unpack this a little bit. So we got a little bit out of order just because.
Sorry about that. I saw that slide and I was like,
this is an important deal. 63%, by the way, is the punchline. On average, 63% of organizations will pass. And frankly, I kind of wish that would be a little lower. Right, because the more that you find those opportunities for enhancement, the better prepared you're actually going to be when it's actually time. So
this is true.
So that's our big meta point that I hope you take away today is you need to completely reboot your philosophy for what you're looking for when you're testing. Meanwhile, Melissa, we should reboot our philosophy on what the map looks like. Our goal is
absolutely.
To turn
Let's reboot this map and see how green it is.
There you go.
Lots of green.
We'll get there in a second, but we love it when the Russians join because so much of the world turns green right away. But let's look at the U.S. first. So what do we got? So we got, hey, Wisconsin's in the house. I spent some time up in Wisconsin for a couple of years. Florida's representing. Indiana's representing. California. All right. We're getting there. I've actually, Illinois was in that mix as well, I think. So what do we got now? We already saw France. Italy, Davut, is in the house. Switzerland, always nice to see. In fact, my guess is some of your friends that help with our DR product in that Switzerland area might actually be listening just to make sure that we don't talk about the next version of Orchestrator.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We're not allowed to talk about that yet. All right. So what else we got in the list? Germany's in the house as well. Any more showing up in LATAM? I can almost always, nothing else in there. And then we got, Nigeria's in the house. Zambia. Been a while since we've seen them. Thank you for joining. I see India over in that upper right-hand corner. That's always nice to see. And Bangladesh representing. And I think that's Iran as well. So that's fantastic. So yeah, so please keep chiming in. Please tell us where you're coming from. Okay, so Melissa, we talk about testing, right? So
we do.
So when you do a test, let's remind folks we talked about last week. The power of testing is to test exactly the way that you're actually going to try to recover over.
Which you have documented, right? You have a DR plan and it has servers and steps and the things you do. So the test is, okay, we take this document that hopefully is up to date, right? And we run through it and see if it works or not.
Now, last week you mentioned humans are not actually good at repetitive, detailed tasks.
They're not, especially when they're under stress.
So
this is like a known thing.
Is there anything that we could do to get humans out of the way of those repetitive tasks?
Yeah, but it's more than just, stressed out humans doing repetitive stuff, right? I did DR tests very early in my career. I worked for a company that was on Wall Street a couple years after 9/11, right? So they were very well versed in what happens during a disaster, and we need to have our stuff straight because they had it happen. And basically, we would all go to the data center for a weekend a couple times a year, lock ourselves in there, and start running through the docs and everything. I had my little clipboard. Okay, I recovered this server, this server, this server, good. But again, it was all of the IT people or all the infrastructure people. It was a small company in a data center for a weekend. That's not scalable and that's not repeatable because, like, let's say we were even doing it quarterly because we're aggressive. and most people are more like 1 or 2 times a year, a lot of things will change in those 6 months, right? If you go 6 months between tests. And have you really gone back and fixed everything and validated and whatever? So that model is the way a lot of people do things, but it's not really a model for success. So that's why it's so important to add automation to this, right? Can we automate our testing? So we come in, we click a button, our test runs, and we get an email with a report when it's done. That's a much more simple model than locking everybody in the data center. Plus, it will give us tremendous time back, right? When we don't have to keep those plans up to date and test them manually, we're getting time back as the IT people where we can go do things that will drive our business forward, not just meet the bare requirements.
Okay, so I love the picture that you paint around click a button and start a test, right? So,
Yes.
so when I first started,
I actually did that before we got on the call. No joke. I clicked a button and started a DR test.
so I have a little bit more gray hair than you're showing. When I would do tests, I have two very quick stories. So you would say you would lock yourself in the data center. I work with companies that would have to declare a disaster. And when you declare a disaster, you cut a 10K, 25K check. All of your people got on a plane. You went to this nondescript warehouse and you started restoring tapes as fast as you could. And you had rows and rows of PCs and fax machines and coffee makers and cubicles. And you would try to spin up an entire site-wide crisis. Thankfully, most companies don't do that anymore. But I will give one big nod. There was and I'm not allowed to use their name, but a very famous, well-known beverage manufacturer located in, I don't know, Georgia-ish. Can't mention their name. But one of their old models for testing disaster recovery, which I thought was absolutely fantastic, was they basically had their data center in a grid, A through Z, 1 through some number, and they would randomly pick, like playing Battleship. Like
I was going to say data center Battleship. Melissa's going to go destroy rack B7. What happens?
That's exactly what they would do. Is they would randomly once a month they would randomly pick a letter and a number, go to that rack. They would gracefully turn that rack down. They weren't crazy, right? And then they would wheel out those machines, wheel in new machines into that place in the rack, restore, and then see how it went. And so on any given month, you would test something. Here's what I would draw out on both of those. The reason that people didn't test more often way back then was because it was expensive and it was hard, right? The way that organizations can test now with orchestration is neither expensive nor hard. So you're out of excuses. That's kind of my point. So, all right. So let's kind of wrap this part forward, though. So you got the scripts. We talked about those last month. You taught me something when I first joined Veeam a few years ago called a readiness check.
Yeah.
Can you unpack how that differs from I'm going to declare a disaster or I'm going to rack a set of servers? Unpack.
Okay. So a readiness check is really super lightweight, and it's really looking at, are you meeting your RPO, right? Because that's important to know daily, right? This will run daily. Can I meet my RPO? And is my, and in the case of CDP specifically, it will also look your SLA. Have you met your SLA? And then it takes it a step further and looks at your recovery resources and says, are my recovery resources ready? So I have a great example about this. I had built a new storage array, a virtual storage array. I connected it to my environment. I thought I was good to go, connected it to Orchestrator, created a plan, ran a readiness check, and it came back with an error. And it told me your destination host cannot see your storage, so you cannot recover. I forgot to set the export policy for my NFS storage. It was correct. I never actually connected the storage, or it wasn't able even to connect to my recovery environment. And that would be a reason that, hey, I can't recover my environment, right? So it's always looking at your environment and making sure you're ready for recovery. And this is lightweight, runs in seconds, right? This isn't a DR task. This is just a check to make sure things are in a good state. It is not going to check your RTO, however.
So I think I'd been on board at Veeam for about 2 months when you first showed me this tool. And actually, the one that caught me up was we were doing my first test trying to fail over VMs from one location to another. And your readiness check actually showed me that one of my IP addresses on one of my core VMs had a fixed IP address. It wasn't DHCP. And so every time that I had brought it down, I had restored it from backups, I'd done everything else, but I always did it in place. And so surely it always worked. But your readiness check showed me that no, it doesn't have a DHCP address, which means when you rehome that to a different server, it ain't gonna find nothing, I think is the tech.
Exactly. Unless you do something with remapping the networks or you had another DHCP server, right? There's a lot of different ways to fix that, but it's going to flag things that are common issues that you would find when you went to recover and they didn't work, right?
And it wouldn't have been that many years ago that I would have just restored all those VMs into a secondary set of metal someplace else. And then you roll up your sleeves and you start figuring out, okay, so why can't this one work? Why isn't this one work? And you just start troubleshooting the list as you bring them on board again because you're doing it all manual.
Exactly.
Which is the technical term for that is wrong. Along the way. So talk about some of the other things that come out of those readiness checks. And also, by the way, who really should be authoring the readiness check? And who are the other stakeholders within an organization that might actually be interested in receiving that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as creating disaster recovery plans, Orchestrator is so easy to use. Being our people, you can have the application teams do their own DR plans, right? You can lock through everything down through our role-based access and site scopes and give the app teams access to just their resources so they can create their own plans. As far as consuming it, we can have this automatically
Wait. I want to put a pause on that one.
Okay.
Because there's some gerbil wheels that are still spinning up depending on what time zone you're in. That's actually really, really powerful. Think about this. So how often is it that central IT, so the backup admins, IT ops, we've got this plan, but the database admins think they're going to be rogue. It's like, you don't understand my app. I got to be in charge of my app.
And we see that all the time, right? Oh, right. I have the most important app, even if you don't, right? My app is special, whatever, fine. We're going to hand you the keys and you can take care of your app. We'll certainly check what you're doing. We're here to support any issues, but we can empower you to do this yourself.
That's a huge point, and folks should write that down on a post-it note. So being able to enable, by the way, typically when an app owner today in 2021 tells me that their app, has these special nuances, basically what I hear is you have failed to document your application, and it is held together by duct tape and baling wire, because that's the only reason why it should require that level of special handling. But that being said, being able to actually empower them so they can actually define their own policies, and yet you can audit them, right? You can check.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Did they do their part? Did they even try to write the policy? Did it test? Did it pass? You can do all that.
Did it pass the readiness check? Did it pass the DR test, right? We can go, after we do it, it's a process of iterating, right? Create your plan and then check it and test it until you do see the green check marks. Because once you see the green check marks, you'll see the green check marks when it's time to actually recover.
And when you think about that traditional role of that IT pro, that systems architect, and the changing dynamic they have with folks like DevOps and PlatOps and those kind of folks, this is a perfect example of what next-gen IT within the data center ought to look like, where you've got core subject matter experts who are doing platform tools like Orchestrator, and then enabling secondary stakeholders to then own their own destiny as long as they use this consistent set of platforming tools. This is absolutely great for next-gen IT-based architectures.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you've got the readiness check, and the readiness check does the cursory stuff, but you said that's not actually a DR test.
It's not.
Let's play that forward. What's the rest of the test look like?
Yeah, so we can also do something called a data lab test where we use the power of Veeam data labs. You can configure a virtual lab in B&R, set it and forget it, a couple more settings in Orchestrator. I right click, I say, literally, it's like 3 clicks. I say right click, I say verify, as you could see in that screenshot. I go through a quick little wizard and my DR test starts running. In the case of a backup, right, it's going to either use instant VM restore technology if you want it to be a quick test just to see if things work, or we can actually test the full restore of your latest backup. And again, because we're using data labs, this is an isolated environment. There's no impact to production. It started in its own little bubble. So we can check, okay, you can restore all your servers. Then we're going to run through your DR plan and check, can I, do all my plan steps work? Am I recovering everything? Everything looks good. I'll get this nifty little report that will say, yes, you've met your RPO, great job. And yes, you've met your RTO. Here's what it actually is. And if I run that quick check, there's a disclaimer right in that report saying, hey, you ran the quick test and this was your RTO, but this wasn't a full test. So if you want your actual real world RTO, go run that full test. The best part is, there's one more best part. When I run this test and the test is done, of course I can have the docs automatically emailed, but I can leave it running, right? That means the app owners, yeah.
So hold on for a second. So I know that, I mean, because you've also been talking about a lot of these technologies on the Friday calls, which have a lot more technologists in them. But I think for a lot of folks on our leadership call, on the Industry Insights call for Mondays, they may not be familiar with what a data labs actually is.
It's a nice little bubble, right? So we're going to have a little proxy appliance that we configure through backup and replication, all for networking, right? So basically your app starts in this isolated bubble, and you can get into it a couple different ways. The easiest way is go right through the orchestrator UI, click on your VM, open console, and it will open the console to the copy of the VM that's running as part of the test.
And that could be a multi-VM state. So like if you have a
you just click on your VM, open the console,
web, middleware, backend database,
you can get it all right there.
Whole test environment.
Super simple.
Right?
Yeah.
It's sequestered off the main network, so you're not going to have
isolated.
double standards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the app owners, you mentioned something in there. The app owners can actually go in and test their own app. This goes back to that enablement scenario we talked about earlier.
Yeah, so leave it running after the test is done, so the app owner can go in, test changes, let the new person wreak havoc on the app, not in production, right? And my most important use case I've been hammering is patch testing, right? There's all these 0-day patches coming out constantly, and people are like, I can't patch because I can't test, or it takes me so long to test that I can't get these patches out in a timely manner. You have an isolated environment started with one click. You go in, you test your patches, you make sure everything works, and you're ready to roll them out to production. So that's probably the use case I've been talking about most lately, just in, with the rise of all the cyberness and all that kind of stuff, patch testing.
So many moons ago, we used to have this phrase, physician do no harm. As a BCDR person, I remember actually bringing down production servers every Microsoft Patch Tuesday. Like you get these patches and you're trying to do the responsible thing, and so you drop the patches in, and that ends up being what breaks the server. Now, this is not a bash on Microsoft. It's just a matter of we didn't really have a method for testing even just OS grade or application patches before they rolled out. And so your goal was you did a backup, you tested the backup, then you ran the patch in production and you hoped for the best, and your only recourse was to restore again, and you had an outage window from that. In this case, you've completely turned that around.
Yeah, absolutely. You're testing those backups with a couple clicks. And either
Which
works
test your ability to do DR, right?
So right, test your ability to DR. So the first primary use case is you're running your DR test, and that can be scheduled or on demand. I mean, you could schedule, hey, every third Tuesday of the month, give the app team an 8-hour window where they can wreak havoc after we run a DR test. You can get really choosy in what you do. And then you just kind of test whatever you need to, right? How many things do we not do because we can't test? We don't patch, right? Let's say I need to do some kind of security audit or test some security settings. Don't want to do that in prod. Do it in a data lab test, right? There's endless possibilities for a copy of your data at the end of the day.
Love that. Love that. All right, let's check the map one last time and see how things are going. Hey, some of my favorite people in the house. The Canadians joined us. Awesome. So now the U.S. is literally wrapped around with green stuff, north and southern borders. That makes me extremely happy. Let's see, Brazil, we can always count on them turning South America a lovely shade of green. Thank you for piling in over there. My friends from South Africa have always joined us. Easily one of my most favorite destinations. And they've got good IT too. So thank you. Please feel free to continue chiming in. And let's see, we do actually have a question.
We have a wonderful comment. I don't know which one of us should read that, Jason, but I love this comment.
You can have it. It's cool.
All right, Randy, thank you for your comment. Randy says, my CIO once asked me about our ability to recover from a DR situation, and I said, easy, 0 chance because we have 0 budget or resources. That's pretty good, and I have a special name for this. Now, I don't know who I'm supposed to give credit to because I don't remember exactly, but maybe it's even you, Jason. The RPO of nope. Right? RPO, nope. You cannot recover. And that's the cases in a lot of these situations. And Randy, a lot of things that I've been working with customers for is talking about that kind of data labs use case for patching and app upgrades and app testing and not letting those DR resources sit idle, right? So when I start doing all these tests, I can have a copy of my environment, do analytics, what have you. I've been working with a lot of customers on that piece specifically so they can go back to their CIO and say, hey, we need this DR site, but it's not going to sit there empty. Here's my plan. We're going to give, app 1, they're going to test on Tuesdays. App 2 is going to test on Wednesdays, right? They can spin it up on demand or scheduled. So that's something I've been helping a lot of customers with, try to make that justification of how to get the money. And by the way, I got another trick for getting money for DR right now. Simply tell them that ransomware is a disaster, right? Because everybody wants to get ready for a ransomware attack. Oh, RPO, no. I like that one too. Thanks, Randy.
Nice. So I'm going to make an extra offer.
RP, no. I'm going to start using that actually.
I like that one. RP, yeah.
RP, no.
So often when you talk to senior leadership, they're trying to roll the dice, right? They're trying to roll the dice between surely the disaster's not going to hit us, it's just not worth the value. And so I'm going to offer to you that the problem becomes that you're speaking a different language. You want to speak RPO, RTO, SLA. They want to speak TCO, ROI. We actually did publish an ebook a couple years ago called The Data Protection by the Numbers for Dummies. And it's kind of a Rosetta Stone. It talks about the financial scenarios, the operational scenarios, and the technical scenarios, and really translating those. If you will tweet, tell me more about disaster recovery ROI, and tweet to JBuff, JBUFF, that's me, then I will reply back to your tweet and send you links to the ebook. I also wrote a book in 2010 with a chapter on how to actually financially calculate the cost of downtime. This is before I joined Veeam. This is not Veeam speak, but it will tell you how to actually do that calculation. If you speak their language, you will get their funding. So, all right, Melissa, we got about a minute left. You want to plug Friday, and then I'm going to
absolutely. If you haven't seen enough of me lately, I will be back on Friday with my colleagues Rick and Kirsten, and we're going to be talking more about recovery and looking at different quick recovery methods with Veeam. So that's going to be exciting and full of demo.
And speaking of exciting, you and I are not done yet. I notice a very lovely green background behind you today. I have mine just off of camera, and we are getting ready for Veeam On Update. It's been a few months. We've shipped some more products, or about to ship some more products. We got more stuff coming, some direction leading into 2022. And so hopefully, I think we have a link at the bottom. So please make sure to register for Veeam On Update. Melissa, you and I are going to have some DR time.
We will, yes.
That event as well. All right, this officially concludes DR month here at this 3-part series on LinkedIn Live. Good luck on the Friday session. On behalf of Melissa and I and the rest of Veeam, thanks for watching.